The fluorescent lights in Dr. Peterson's office felt too bright. Rachel sat in the stiff chair, her hands gripping the armrests as the doctor's words washed over her like cold water. Tumor, surgery, immediately. Insurance coverage limited, high out-of-pocket costs. She nodded mechanically, trying to focus, but her mind kept drifting to the same thought. How am I going to do this? Mrs. Chan, are you listening? Dr. Peterson's voice pulled her back to reality. She wasn't a Mrs. anymore, hadn't been for 6 years. But she didn't bother correcting him. Yes, I'm listening, she said quietly. The tumor is benign, which is good news, he continued, his tone gentle but professional. But it's growing rapidly and pressing against your spine. We can't wait much longer. If we delay, you could face permanent nerve damage, possibly paralysis. The word paralysis hit her like a punch to the stomach. She thought of her daughter, of who would take care of her if something went wrong. She thought of the 2 jobs she was barely holding together, of the rent that was already 3 weeks late, of the empty refrigerator at home that she kept meaning to fill. How much time do I have? She asked. I've scheduled you for next Friday. That gives us just over a week to get everything arranged. A week, 7 days to figure out how to pay for surgery, find someone to watch her daughter, and somehow keep her life from completely falling apart. Dr. Peterson handed her a folder thick with papers, consent forms, financial information, pre-surgery instructions. The stack felt heavy in her hands. Do you have family who can help during recovery? He asked. You'll need someone for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer. Rachel shook her head. My parents passed away a few years ago. I'm pretty much on my own. What about your daughter's father? She let out a bitter laugh. He left when she was 2. Haven't heard from him since. The doctor's expression softened with sympathy, but sympathy didn't pay bills or watch children or make impossible situations possible. Rachel thanked him, took the folder, and walked out of the office on legs that felt like rubber. The bus ride home took 45 minutes. She stared out the window, watching the city pass by in a blur of gray buildings and busy people who all seemed to know where they were going. The medical folder sat on her lap like a brick. She opened it once, saw the estimate for her portion of the costs, and quickly closed it again. $15,000. It might as well have been $15 million. Her phone buzzed. A text from Linda, her neighbor who usually watched her daughter after school. Sorry, hon, I came down with the flu. Can't watch Lily today. Hope you can figure something out. Of course, because why would anything be easy? Rachel got off the bus 2 stops early and walked the rest of the way home. She needed time to think, to compose herself before facing her daughter. Lily was smart, too smart sometimes. She picked up on moods and worried about things no 8-year-old should worry about. The apartment building looked more run down than usual in the late afternoon light. Peeling paint, cracked concrete steps, a broken window on the 2nd floor that the landlord kept promising to fix. Home sweet home. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs to their unit and found Lily sitting in the hallway, backpack beside her, reading a library book. Baby, what are you doing out here? Rachel asked, fumbling for her keys. Mrs. Linda said she was sick, so I just waited. It's okay, Mom, I had my book. Rachel's heart clenched. Her daughter shouldn't have to wait in hallways. She shouldn't have to be so understanding, so patient, so used to things not working out. Inside the apartment, Lily went straight to the small kitchen table to start her homework. It was their routine. Rachel would change out of her work clothes, start dinner, and help with any tough problems. But today, Rachel just stood in the doorway, watching her daughter's dark ponytail bounce as she wrote in her notebook. How was she going to tell her? What could she possibly say that wouldn't scare an 8-year-old? Mom, you okay? Lily looked up, her brown eyes concerned. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. You're always tired, it was true. Between her morning shift at the diner and her evening cleaning job at the office building downtown, Rachel barely slept. She'd been running on coffee and determination for so long she'd forgotten what rested felt like. I'll make us some dinner, Rachel said, opening the refrigerator. Half a carton of eggs, some wilted vegetables, a jar of pasta sauce. She could make it work. She always made it work. While the pasta boiled, she sat across from Lily and helped her with math problems. Fractions. Her daughter was struggling with the concept of dividing things into parts. See, if you have 1 pizza and you cut it into 8 slices, each slice is 1/8 of the whole pizza, Rachel explained. But what if someone eats more slices? Is it still fair? Life isn't always fair, baby. Sometimes people get more, sometimes less. You just do the best you can with what you have. Was she still talking about pizza, or was she talking about everything else? After dinner, after Lily's bath, after the bedtime story and the tucking in and the gentle kiss on the forehead, Rachel finally let herself fall apart. She sat on the edge of her bed in the dark, the medical folder beside her, and cried as quietly as she could. The numbers didn't make sense, no matter how many times she looked at them. Her insurance would cover maybe 40%. The hospital wanted a deposit up front. They'd suggested payment plans, but even those required money she didn't have. She opened her laptop and logged into her bank account. $347. That was everything. Her entire financial cushion, 6 years of trying to save, and it wasn't even enough for the deposit. Rachel pulled up her email and started composing a message to her manager at the diner, asking for an advance on her paycheck. She deleted it, started again, deleted it again. The words felt like begging, and she'd promised herself years ago that she'd never beg anyone for anything. Her phone showed 11:47 p.m. In 5 hours, her alarm would go off for the morning shift. She needed to sleep, but her mind wouldn't stop racing through scenarios, each one more impossible than the last. Through the thin walls, she could hear the neighbor's television. Someone laughed. Life going on normally for everyone else while hers crumbled. Rachel thought about her parents, gone now for 3 years. Her mother would have known what to do. Her father would have figured out the money somehow. But they'd left her nothing but love and memories. And neither of those paid for surgery. She thought about calling her ex-husband, the man who'd promised forever and delivered 3 years before disappearing. She didn't even have his current number. Last she heard, he was in another state with a new family. A fresh start. How nice for him. The darkness felt heavy, pressing down on her shoulders. For the first time in years, Rachel let herself feel the full weight of being truly alone. No safety net. No backup plan. No one to call at midnight when everything fell apart. She lay back on the bed, still dressed, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the building, a baby cried. A door slammed. The radiator clanked and hissed. Friday was coming, whether she was ready or not. And she had absolutely no idea how she was going to survive it. The morning shift at the diner was always chaos, but Tuesday felt especially brutal. Rachel's hands shook as she poured coffee, her mind miles away from the breakfast orders and impatient customers. 3 days had passed since the doctor's appointment, and she was no closer to solving any of her problems. Table 7 needs their check, her manager called out from behind the counter. Rachel grabbed the bill and headed over, forcing a smile she didn't feel. The customer complained about his eggs being too runny. She apologized, took the plate back, waited for the cook to make new ones. The whole time her lower back throbbed where the tumor was pressing against her spine. By noon she was exhausted, but she couldn't afford to slow down. Tips were the only thing keeping her afloat, and good tips meant staying cheerful no matter how much everything hurt. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. Another text from the hospital. A reminder about her pre-surgery appointment and the required deposit. She deleted it without reading the whole message. Rachel, you're picking up an extra shift tonight, right? Her manager asked during her break. She wanted to say yes. She desperately needed the money. But tonight was her cleaning shift at the office building downtown, and that paid better than the diner. She couldn't afford to lose either job. I can't, sorry. I have my other job, he frowned. You know we need reliable people. Can't keep doing this dance with 2 schedules. The unspoken threat hung in the air. Choose one or lose both. But how could she choose? Neither job alone paid enough to survive. I'll figure it out, she said, though she had no idea how. The afternoon dragged on. More coffee. More orders. More fake smiles. By 3 o'clock, her feet ached and the pain in her back had spread to her legs. Dr. Peterson's warning echoed in her mind. Permanent nerve damage. Paralysis. She caught the bus downtown with barely 15 minutes to spare before her evening shift. The office building was one of those fancy corporate towers with marble floors and glass elevators. She cleaned the executive floors, the ones where people made more in a month than she made in a year. The cleaning supervisor handed her the key card and supply cart. 15th floor tonight. Some big shot is working late, so be quiet up there. Rachel nodded and headed to the elevator. The fluorescent lights reflected off the polished floors. Everything here looked expensive, untouchable. She pushed her cart down the hallway, past offices with views of the city skyline. Most of the floor was empty, but light spilled from one corner office. She'd clean around it and come back later. No point bothering whoever was working. She started in the conference room, emptying trash cans and wiping down the long table. Someone had left their coffee cup behind with lipstick marks on the rim, a half-eaten sandwich wrapped in paper. Little pieces of other people's lives that they didn't think twice about leaving behind. Her mind wandered as she worked. 4 days until surgery. The hospital had called again this morning, asking about the deposit. She'd promised to call back. She hadn't. The vacuum cleaner roared to life, drowning out her thoughts, back and forth across the carpet, making neat lines like her supervisor had taught her. The monotony was almost soothing. She was so focused on the vacuuming that she didn't notice someone standing in the doorway until she turned around and nearly ran into him. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Rachel jumped back, her heart racing. The man held up his hands with a gentle smile. "My fault. I should have made myself known. Didn't want to startle you." He was maybe in his mid-50s, wearing an expensive suit with the tie loosened. The kind of person who belonged in offices like these. Rachel immediately felt self-conscious in her cleaning uniform. "I'll get out of your way," she said, starting to push her cart toward the door. "No rush." "I was just stretching my legs." He paused. "Long day?" It was a simple question, probably just polite small talk, but something about the kindness in his voice made Rachel's carefully constructed walls crack just a little. "You could say that," she replied, managing a tired smile. "I know the feeling. Sometimes I think the days just keep getting longer." He extended his hand. "I'm David, by the way." She shook his hand, surprised by the gesture. "Rachel. Nice to meet you, Rachel. Thanks for keeping this place looking good. People like me forget there are people like you who make everything run smoothly." It was such a simple acknowledgement, but it hit her harder than it should have. When was the last time someone had thanked her for her work? Really thanked her? Not just the automatic thanks that came with a tip. "Just doing my job," she said softly. David nodded and started to walk away, then turned back. "You okay? You look like you're in pain." Rachel instinctively straightened up, trying to hide the wince. "I'm fine. Just tired, if you say so." He didn't push, which she appreciated. "Well, I'll let you get back to it. Have a good evening, Rachel." She finished the conference room and moved on to the next office. But her hands were shaking again, and it wasn't from exhaustion. That brief moment of human kindness had reminded her how isolated she'd become. How long had it been since someone looked at her and really saw her? An hour later, she was cleaning near that corner office when she heard David on the phone. His door was slightly open and his voice carried into the hallway. "No, I understand the numbers, but I'm not cutting the employee assistance program. That's non-negotiable." A pause. "Because I remember what it's like to struggle. Because people need help sometimes, and if we can provide it, we should." Rachel slowed her movements, not meaning to eavesdrop, but unable to help hearing. "Look, my wife died when my son was young. I was a single parent trying to hold everything together, working myself to death. If people hadn't helped me then, I don't know where I'd be. So no, we're not cutting that program. Find the money somewhere else." The conversation ended, and Rachel quickly moved down the hallway, her mind racing. She thought about what she'd overheard. Employee assistance program. Help for people who were struggling. She finished her shift and was packing up her supplies when David emerged from his office, briefcase in hand. "Still here?" he asked, looking surprised. "Just finishing up." They walked to the elevator together. The silence felt comfortable rather than awkward. "Can I ask you something?" David said as they waited. "And you can absolutely tell me it's none of my business," Rachel tensed. "Okay. Earlier when I asked if you were okay." "You're not, are you?" The elevator doors opened, but neither of them moved. Rachel felt tears threatening and fought them back. "I'm dealing with some health stuff," she admitted. "It's complicated. Health stuff is always complicated." His expression was understanding, not pitying. "Do you have support? Family, friends?" She shook her head. "It's just me and my daughter." David reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. He wrote something on the back and handed it to her. "I don't know what you're dealing with, but if you need resources or just someone to talk to, that's my direct line." "I mean it." Rachel looked at the card. "David Mitchell, CEO, Mitchell Technology Solutions." Her eyes widened. "You're the CEO?" "Guilty." He smiled. "But that doesn't mean I don't remember what it's like to feel alone and overwhelmed." "Take the card. You don't have to use it, but it's there if you need it." The elevator dinged again. This time they both stepped inside. Rachel clutched the card in her hand as they rode down in silence. In the lobby, David nodded goodbye and headed toward the parking garage. She watched him go, then looked down at the card again. A direct phone number to a CEO. It felt surreal, like something that happened in movies, not real life. She tucked it into her wallet, behind Lily's school photo, and caught the bus home. That night, after Lily was asleep, Rachel sat at the kitchen table with the card in front of her. She thought about what David had said. About needing help. About not being alone, but asking for help meant admitting she couldn't handle everything herself. It meant being vulnerable with a stranger. It meant risking rejection and disappointment. She put the card back in her wallet and went to bed. Tomorrow was Wednesday. 2 more days until Friday. 2 more days to figure out the impossible. Thursday morning started with a phone call Rachel had been dreading. The landlord's voice was cold and matter-of-fact. "Rachel, I've been patient. More than patient. But you're almost a month behind now. I need the rent by Saturday or I'll have to start eviction proceedings." She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. "Mr. Carson, please. I have surgery tomorrow. Can you just give me 2 more weeks?" "I've given you weeks already. I have bills too. Saturday or I file the papers." The line went dead. Rachel stared at her phone, feeling like the walls were closing in. Surgery tomorrow. Rent due Saturday. No money for either. She got Lily ready for school in a daze, making toast and packing lunch on autopilot. Her daughter chatted about a field trip coming up, something about the science museum, and Rachel nodded along without really hearing. "Mom, did you hear me? I need $20 for the trip by next Friday." $20. Such a small amount. It might as well have been 1,000. "We'll see, honey," Rachel said. The phrase she always used when the answer was probably no, but she couldn't bear to disappoint her daughter directly. Lily's face fell. She was getting old enough to know what "we'll see" really meant. After dropping Lily at school, Rachel went straight to the diner. Her manager met her at the door with an envelope. "This is your paycheck. I'm giving it to you early since you mentioned needing it." Hope flared in Rachel's chest. Maybe, just maybe, there would be enough to cover the hospital deposit. She opened the envelope in the bathroom. $312. After taxes and deductions, that's what 2 weeks of work amounted to. Combined with the money in her account, she had about $650 total. The hospital needed $3,000 up front. The rent was $1,100. Rachel leaned against the bathroom sink and laughed, a harsh sound that bordered on hysteria. The numbers were so far apart it was almost funny. Almost. Her shift passed in a blur. She messed up orders twice, dropped a plate, gave the wrong change to a customer who yelled at her for 5 minutes while her manager watched with disapproval. "You need to get your head in the game," he told her during her break. "I can't have you working like this." What was she supposed to say? That her entire life was falling apart? That tomorrow she was having surgery she couldn't afford? That she might lose her apartment and had no idea where she and her daughter would go? "It won't happen again," she mumbled. At 2 o'clock her phone rang. The hospital. "Ms. Chen, this is Jennifer from the billing department. We still haven't received your deposit for tomorrow's surgery. Without it, we'll have to reschedule." Rachel stepped outside into the cold autumn air. "I'm working on it. I'll have it by tomorrow morning." "The deposit needs to be processed 24 hours before the procedure. That deadline has passed. Please." Rachel's voice cracked. "My doctor said this can't wait. If I don't have this surgery, I could end up paralyzed." There was a pause. "Let me speak with my supervisor. I'll call you back within the hour." Rachel ended the call and realized she was shaking, not from the cold, but from panic so deep it felt like drowning. She thought about calling David, pulling out that business card and dialing the number. But what would she even say? "Hi, remember me, the cleaning lady? Can you give me $3,000? It was absurd. The hour passed. No call back from the hospital. Then another hour. By the time her shift ended at 4, Rachel's phone finally rang. "Ms. Chen, I spoke with my supervisor and Dr. Peterson. Given the urgent nature of your case, we can proceed with surgery tomorrow if you can provide at least $1,000 by 7 a.m. $1,000. Still impossible, but less impossible than 3,000. "I'll be there," Rachel heard herself say. She had no idea how she'd get that money, but she'd said it anyway. What choice did she have? Rachel picked up Lily from the after-school program and headed home. Her daughter was quiet in the bus, sensing something was wrong. "Mom, are you sick?" Rachel pulled her close. "I'm okay, baby. Just dealing with some grown-up stuff. Is it about money? I heard you on the phone this morning." 8 years old and already learning that money was the thing that controlled everything. Rachel wished she could protect her from that knowledge a little longer. "Don't worry about it. I've got it handled," but she didn't have it handled. Not even close. At home, Rachel made dinner from whatever she could find in the cupboards. Rice and canned vegetables. Lily didn't complain, even though Rachel knew she was probably tired of the same meals. After dinner, Rachel sat down with a notepad and tried to figure out a solution. She could pawn her laptop, maybe get $100. Her wedding ring was already gone, sold 2 years ago. She had nothing else of value. Nothing except time, and she was out of that too. She thought about borrowing from loan sharks, those predatory lenders who advertised on telephone poles. But even in desperation, she knew that road led nowhere good. At 8 o'clock, Linda from next door knocked on the door. She looked pale and tired, still recovering from her flu. "Hey Rachel, I heard from Mrs. Park downstairs that you have surgery tomorrow. I'm so sorry I can't help with Lily. I'm still contagious." "It's okay. I understand. Did you find someone to watch her?" Rachel hadn't even thought about it. With everything else falling apart, she'd completely forgotten that she couldn't take Lily to the hospital with her. "I'm working on it," she lied. After Linda left, Rachel made a list of every person she could possibly call. The list was pathetically short. A co-worker from the diner who had 3 kids of her own and couldn't take another. A woman from Lily's school she'd talked to a few times but didn't really know. The supervisor at her cleaning job who'd always been kind but was essentially a stranger. None of them felt right. None of them felt safe. By 9 o'clock, Lily was in bed and Rachel was sitting at the kitchen table, crying as quietly as possible. The business card sat in front of her, David Mitchell's direct number. She picked up her phone 3 times and put it down 3 times. What was she supposed to say? How do you ask a stranger for help when you've spent your whole life proving you don't need anyone? But the alternative was what? Not having the surgery? Letting the tumor keep growing until she couldn't walk? Losing her apartment and ending up on the street with her daughter? Pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. Rachel dialed the number before she could change her mind. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Maybe he wouldn't answer. Maybe this was a mistake. "This is David." His voice was calm, professional. Rachel almost hung up. "Hi, this is Rachel. We met on Tuesday at your office. You gave me your card." Rachel, of course. "I remember. How are you?" That simple question broke something inside her. How was she? She was terrified. She was broke. She was alone and desperate and completely out of options. "I'm not okay," she whispered. "I know this is crazy. I know we barely know each other. But I didn't know who else to call. Tell me what's happening," so she did. Everything came spilling out. The tumor. The surgery tomorrow. The money she didn't have. The landlord threatening eviction. The daughter she had no one to watch. The fear of ending up paralyzed or homeless or both. She talked for maybe 10 minutes straight and David didn't interrupt once. When she finally ran out of words, there was a long silence on the line. "I'm sorry," Rachel said. "I shouldn't have called. This isn't your problem." "Rachel, stop. Where are you right now?" "At home. What's your address?" She hesitated, then gave it to him. What did she have to lose at this point? "Stay there. I'm coming to you. We're going to figure this out. You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to. Just stay there, okay?" He hung up. Rachel sat holding her phone, not quite believing what had just happened. A CEO was coming to her rundown apartment to help her. A stranger who owed her nothing. She looked around at the peeling wallpaper, the second-hand furniture, the toys Lily had carefully organized in the corner. This was her life laid bare, and soon David would see all of it. 45 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Rachel took a deep breath and opened it. David stood in the hallway wearing jeans and a sweater instead of a suit. He looked like a regular person, not a CEO. He looked kind. "Hi," he said simply. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside and he walked into her small apartment. Her whole life was about to change. She could feel it. David stepped into the small apartment and Rachel immediately felt self-conscious. The place looked even more shabby than usual through the eyes of someone who probably lived in a mansion. The worn couch with a visible stain, the kitchen table with one wobbly leg, The crack in the ceiling she kept meaning to report but never did. Sorry about the mess, she said automatically, though the apartment was actually quite tidy. Just old and worn, don't apologize. My first apartment looked worse than this, and I didn't even have a kid to take care of. David smiled, trying to put her at ease. Is your daughter asleep? Yeah, she's in the bedroom. Good. Let's sit down and talk through this. They sat at the kitchen table. Rachel clasped her hands together to keep them from shaking. She still couldn't quite believe this was happening. Okay, David said gently. Let's start with the most urgent thing. Your surgery is tomorrow morning at 7? Yes, but I need to have $1,000 at the hospital by 7 or they'll cancel it. That's handled. Rachel blinked. What? The money for your surgery? Consider it handled. My company has a foundation that helps people in situations exactly like yours. We'll cover your medical expenses. I can't just take money from you. That's not why I called. I just thought maybe you knew of programs or something that could help. David leaned forward. Rachel, listen to me. This is literally what the foundation exists for. We help employees and community members who are facing crisis situations. You work in our building. That makes you part of our community. But I'm just a cleaning person. You're a person who works hard and needs help. That's all that matters. His voice was firm but kind. Let me tell you something. 22 years ago, my wife died suddenly. Heart attack. She was only 34. I had a 6-year-old son, and I was working 2 jobs trying to get my business off the ground. I was drowning. Rachel saw the pain flicker across his face even after all these years. A stranger helped me. David continued, a woman from my son's school who barely knew us. She organized meals, found childcare, even helped with funeral costs. She told me that when people help each other, it creates ripples. Those ripples spread out and touch more lives. She said someday I'd be in a position to help someone else, and I should do it without hesitation. And that's what you're doing now? That's what I've been doing for years. You're not the first person I've helped, Rachel. You won't be the last. And you know what? Most of the people I've helped have gone on to help others. That's how it works. You accept help now, and someday when you can, you help someone else. Rachel felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just let me help. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to call the hospital billing department right now and arrange payment. What else do we need to solve tonight? Lily. I have no one to watch her during the surgery and recovery. My neighbor is sick. I don't have family. I can't just leave her alone. David nodded, thinking. My sister Catherine is a retired nurse. She volunteers with families who need support. I'll call her right now. She'll stay with Lily during your surgery and help you during recovery. A stranger? I can't leave my daughter with someone I don't know. Then you'll meet her first. Right now, if possible. He was already dialing. Kate, it's David. I need your help with something important. Rachel listened as he explained the situation. She heard a woman's voice on the other end, warm and immediate in her agreement to help. She'll be here in 30 minutes, David said after hanging up. You can meet her, see if you're comfortable. If not, we'll figure out something else. Why are you doing this? Rachel asked. Really? This is so much more than just writing a check. David was quiet for a moment, because I remember what it felt like to be completely alone, to feel like the world was crushing me and there was no way out. Someone showed me that wasn't true, that there are good people who care even when you don't expect it. He smiled sadly. And because I have a daughter now, too. She's 16. If something happened to me and she was alone and struggling, I'd want someone to help her. I'd want someone to see her as a person worth saving. Rachel wiped her eyes. I've been so scared, I know. But you're not alone anymore. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not next week. We're going to get through this together. They spent the next 20 minutes going through the practical details. David called the hospital and arranged for payment. He made notes about Lily's school schedule, her dietary restrictions, her bedtime routine. He asked questions about Rachel's recovery needs, how long she'd be unable to work, what her typical expenses looked like. What about your rent? He asked. Rachel's stomach dropped. She'd almost forgotten in the chaos. My landlord wants it by Saturday or he starts eviction. I'm 3 weeks behind. How much? $1,100. But I can't ask you to. You didn't ask. I'm offering. The foundation will cover 2 months of rent. That gives you time to recover and get back on your feet without worrying about losing your home. Rachel couldn't speak. The relief was so overwhelming it felt physical. like someone had lifted a crushing weight off her chest. A knock on the door made them both look up. David went to answer it, and a woman in her 50s walked in. She had kind eyes and a gentle smile that reminded Rachel of her own mother. "You must be Rachel," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Catherine, but everyone calls me Kate." They shook hands, and Rachel felt some of her anxiety ease. There was something immediately trustworthy about this woman. "Let me tell you what I'm thinking," Kate said, sitting down. "I'll come over tomorrow morning at 5:30. That gives you time to show me around. Introduce me to Lily before you leave for the hospital. I'll take her to school, pick her up, and stay with her until you're home and settled. But the surgery might take hours. And then recovery. I have nowhere else to be. This is what I do, Rachel. I help families. It's not a burden. It's a privilege. Lily's shy with new people. That's okay. We'll take it slow. Kids are usually pretty good at sensing when someone genuinely cares about them." Kate smiled. "Does she like pancakes?" "I make excellent pancakes. She loves pancakes." "Then that's how we'll start. Breakfast together, and I'll tell her about my grandson who's around her age. By the time you leave for the hospital, she'll be comfortable." David stood up. "I should let you two talk." "Kate, you've got this?" "We're good," Kate assured him. He turned to Rachel. "I'll check in tomorrow after your surgery. Don't worry about work or bills or anything else. Just focus on getting better." Rachel walked him to the door. "David, I don't know how to thank you. You just did. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow's going to be tough, but you'll get through it." After he left, Kate stayed for another hour. They talked about Lily, about the surgery, about what Rachel would need during recovery. Kate wrote everything down in a small notebook, asking questions and offering suggestions. "You've been carrying this all by yourself for a long time, haven't you?" Kate asked gently. "I didn't have a choice." "Well, now you do. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let people help us." After Kate left, Rachel checked on Lily. Her daughter was sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that their lives had just changed. Rachel kissed her forehead and whispered, "We're going to be okay, baby. We're really going to be okay." She went back to the living room and sat on the couch, looking at the business card still sitting on the table. One phone call. That's all it had taken. One moment of vulnerability, of admitting she couldn't do it alone. For the first time in weeks, Rachel felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. Real, tangible hope that tomorrow wouldn't be the disaster she'd been dreading. That she might actually come out of this surgery and still have a home to return to. That her daughter would be safe and cared for. She thought about what David had said. About ripples. About helping others when you're able. Someday, she promised herself, when she was back on her feet, she'd find a way to be that person for someone else. To be the stranger who showed up and said, "You're not alone." Rachel set her alarm for 4:30 and went to bed. For the first time in a week, sleep came easily. The fear was still there, but it no longer felt suffocating. Tomorrow was surgery day. But tonight she could rest knowing that people cared. That kindness wasn't just something that happened in movies. That sometimes when you're at your lowest point, the world surprises you with exactly what you need. She closed her eyes and, for just a moment, let herself believe that everything was going to work out. The alarm went off at 4:30, but Rachel was already awake. She'd been lying in bed for the past hour, watching the ceiling and trying to calm her nerves. Today was the day. Surgery day. She got up quietly and made coffee, her hands steadier than they'd been in days. The fear was still there, sitting heavy in her chest. But it felt different now, manageable, like something she could face instead of something that would drown her. At 5:30 exactly, there was a soft knock on the door. Kate stood in the hallway holding a grocery bag and wearing a cheerful yellow sweater. "Good morning," she said softly. "I brought supplies for pancakes and some fruit. Thought we'd make it special for Lily." Rachel let her in, grateful for the distraction. They moved around the small kitchen together, Kate asking where things were kept, Rachel showing her the pancake mix and the good frying pan. It felt strange having someone else in her space, but also comforting in a way she hadn't expected. "You should go wake Lily," Kate suggested. "Give you two some time together before you leave." Rachel went to the bedroom and sat on the edge of Lily's bed, gently brushing the hair from her daughter's face. "Baby, time to wake up." Lily's eyes opened slowly. "Is it school day already?" "Yes, but something special is happening today. Remember how I told you I had to go to the doctor?" Lily sat up, suddenly worried. "Are you sick?" I need a little surgery, but I'm going to be fine. And while I'm gone, a very nice lady named Kate is going to stay with you. She's making pancakes right now. I don't want you to go. Rachel pulled her daughter close. I know, sweetheart. But I'll be back before bedtime. Kate is going to take good care of you. She's really kind and she has a grandson your age. I think you'll like her. They went to the kitchen together, Lily hiding partly behind Rachel. Kate looked up from the stove and smiled warmly. You must be Lily. I've heard so many wonderful things about you. Your mom says you're excellent at math. Lily nodded shyly. That's great because I'm terrible at math. Maybe you can help me figure out how many pancakes we need. There's 3 of us, and if we each want 2 pancakes, how many is that total? 6, Lily said quietly. See? I knew you were smart. Can you help me count them as I make them? By the time breakfast was finished, Lily was sitting next to Kate at the table telling her about the Science Museum field trip. Rachel watched them, feeling the knot in her chest loosen just a little. Her daughter was going to be okay. At 6:15, Rachel changed into clean clothes and gathered her hospital paperwork. Kate walked her to the door while Lily finished her juice. I've got her, Kate said firmly. Don't worry about anything except getting better. Her lunch is in the fridge. She likes the crusts cut off her sandwiches, and she has a spelling test today that she's nervous about. I'll quiz her on the way to school. Rachel breathed. She's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Rachel hugged her, this woman she'd known for less than 12 hours. Thank you. For everything. Thank David. And then thank yourself for being brave enough to ask for help. The hospital was quiet at 6:30 in the morning. Rachel checked in at the surgical center, and a nurse led her to a pre-op room. The medical staff moved efficiently around her, asking questions, taking vitals, explaining procedures. It all felt surreal, like it was happening to someone else. Dr. Peterson came in wearing his scrubs and that same gentle expression. Ready? He asked. Not really, Rachel admitted. But I don't have much choice. You're doing the right thing. This tumor needs to come out. In a few hours, you'll be on the other side of this and you can start healing. They wheeled her to the operating room. The lights were bright overhead and people moved around in blue surgical gowns. Someone put a mask over her face and told her to count backward from 10. Rachel thought about Lily, about Kate making pancakes, about David showing up at her door, about the kindness of strangers who weren't strangers anymore. She made it to 7 before everything went dark. When Rachel woke up, the first thing she felt was pain, dull and throbbing in her lower back. The second thing she felt was relief. She was alive. She could feel her legs. Welcome back, a nurse said, adjusting something on the IV pole. Surgery went perfectly. Dr. Peterson removed the tumor and everything looks good. Rachel tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. Don't try to talk yet. Just rest. You're in recovery and you'll be here for a few hours before we move you to a regular room. Time passed strangely. Rachel drifted in and out of sleep. At some point, she woke to find David sitting in a chair beside her bed reading something on his phone. Hey, he said when he noticed her eyes open. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, Rachel croaked. He smiled and handed her some ice chips. That's normal, apparently. But the surgery went great. Dr. Peterson said the tumor came out clean and he expects a full recovery. Lily? She's fine. Kate texted me. They picked her up from school, and they're baking cookies at your apartment right now. Something about a celebration for when you come home. Tears leaked from the corners of Rachel's eyes. Happy tears this time, don't cry. You're supposed to be celebrating. I am celebrating. I just can't believe this is real. That you're here, that my daughter is safe, that I'm going to be okay. Believe it. This is your life now. The hard part is over. They moved her to a regular room that evening. The pain medication made her drowsy, but Rachel fought to stay awake. She didn't want to miss any of this. The feeling of not being alone, of people caring. Kate brought Lily to visit after dinner. Her daughter ran to the bedside, then stopped, suddenly scared of the hospital equipment. It's okay, baby. Come here. Lily carefully hugged her and Rachel breathed in the smell of her daughter's shampoo. I missed you. I missed you too. But Kate made the best cookies. And she's teaching me to knit. Look. Lily held up a small, uneven square of blue yarn. That's beautiful. It's going to be a blanket. For you. For when you come home. Rachel spent 2 days in the hospital. Kate brought Lily to visit each evening. and David stopped by every afternoon with books and magazines. Other people came too. Rachel's manager from the diner sent flowers. Linda from next door brought a card signed by half the building. Even some of the office workers from the building where she cleaned sent a gift basket. When Dr. Peterson cleared her for discharge, Kate drove her home. The apartment looked different somehow, cleaner, brighter. There were fresh flowers on the kitchen table and groceries in the refrigerator. Kate, you didn't have to do all this. I wanted to. Besides, Lily helped. She's very particular about where things should go. Rachel settled on the couch with pillows supporting her back. Lily curled up beside her carefully and they watched a movie together. For the first time in years, Rachel felt something she'd almost forgotten. Peace. Over the next few weeks, Kate came by daily to help with meals and housework. David checked in regularly, making sure Rachel had everything she needed. The foundation covered her medical bills completely, and the 2 months of rent gave her breathing room to heal without panic. But more than the money, more than the practical help, Rachel received something she hadn't expected: community. People who cared not because they had to, but because they chose to. It changed something fundamental in how she saw the world. 6 weeks after surgery, Rachel returned to work. Her back still ached sometimes, but Dr. Peterson said that would fade. What wouldn't fade was the lesson she'd learned about accepting help, about vulnerability being strength, not weakness. She'd started having coffee with Kate once a week. David had become a friend, someone she could call when things got tough. She'd even joined a single parents support group that met at the community center. 3 months after her surgery, Rachel enrolled in community college, just one class to start, accounting. The foundation had a scholarship program and David had encouraged her to apply. She got in. It wasn't a huge change. She still worked her jobs, still struggled sometimes to make ends meet, still worried about Lily in the future. But the weight was different now, lighter, shared. One Saturday morning, Rachel and Lily volunteered at a food bank that Kate had told them about. They sorted donations and packed boxes for families in need. A woman came in, young and tired-looking, holding a toddler. She looked embarrassed and scared. Rachel recognized that look. She'd worn it herself not so long ago. She walked over with a warm smile. "Hi, I'm Rachel. Let me help you with that." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Things have been really hard. I understand, more than you know." Rachel guided her to the intake table. "You're not alone, okay? We're here to help." As she helped the woman fill out forms, Rachel thought about David's words, about ripples, about how kindness spreads from one person to another, creating waves that touch lives in ways you might never fully see. She was part of that now. Not just someone who received help, but someone who could give it, the cycle continuing, the ripple spreading outward. That evening, Rachel tucked Lily into bed and sat beside her. "Mom, are you happy?" Lily asked. Rachel thought about it. Really thought about it. 6 months ago, she would have said she was surviving, managing, getting by. Now, yeah, baby, I really am. Me too. I like when Kate visits. And Mr. David. They're like family. They are family. Not the kind you're born with, but the kind you choose. The kind that chooses you back. After Lily fell asleep, Rachel sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. She thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the desperation. The moment she'd made that phone call. The way everything had changed because one person said, "You're not alone." She pulled out her journal and wrote a single sentence. "Today I helped someone the way I was helped." It felt like coming home. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere, someone else was struggling, feeling alone, wondering if they could make it through. Rachel hoped they'd find their moment, their person, their reminder that the world has more kindness in it than we sometimes remember. She hoped they'd learn what she'd learned, that asking for help isn't giving up. It's the beginning of something better. It's the moment everything can change. And sometimes all it takes is one phone call to someone who cares.